Today I'm here to talk about foundation model and generalist medical AI. But before diving into this topic, I want to open up with this question that why we are here? Like why we are here and not the other workshop that's happening at the same time? Or let me rephrase that. Why we are interested in the medical AI and AI for science and medicine? I guess the answer is simple but very clarifying. I think most of the people that they are working in this section, they are true believer that the work that we are doing here is very impactful and it can improve the life of billions of people eventually. So I think it's been clear through the history that we've been seeing past decades that we have a huge potential here for patient impact, especially in developing world. We have studies that they're showing that scaling up imaging can avert basically millions of deaths caused by cancer, and we have algorithms like narrow models that they can detect deadly disease such as TB very early on. So with that in mind, I think it has been also tremendous interest in this section over the past decades in applying AI to medicine. We've seen that we can augment doctor to detect breast cancer more accurately. We have methods that they can detect skin conditions. And we have methods that we see that we have improvement in genome sequencing using them. So these are very great. And we had interest from large industrial labs such as Google to government-backed companies and also academic world to develop methods at the intersection of AI in medicine. But to also give you another point, we can look at the many scientific papers that have been coming since 2010. We have an exponential number of papers. At year 2022, basically we had 20K paper published in this area. And since 2014, we have more than 100 times increase in the papers that they are coming at the intersection of health and life science. That's a huge increase. And to give you another very interesting data point, investors has been invested more than $100 billion in healthcare and for digital healthcare since 2010. That's a huge number. So we should expect to see some generational company coming out of 100 billion investment, but we don't have any. And that was the point that a lot of talks made, and it was in questions that why we don't have any impact in a way that we expect out of the investment that we are making here. So we see that medical AI till now has had a very slow progress to go to real world and to scale up. And I can say that there are multiple key translational challenges for medical AI. And we've touched a few of them in the past few talks yesterday, including the model, the policy, and the market that they should react to the development that we are making here. I'm not a policymaker. I don't have an MBA. Today I'm here to talk about the model. And we know that we have several unmet needs here for the models. Other people touch them. One of them is generalization of these models. So we want to have models that they are performing stable if they're seeing new data. We want to have reliable data, reliable models and we want to have like models that they are robust. But also there are some missing research that needs to happen. Some of this like missing research are underlying in the basically interactivity and multimodal models. So we had tons of developments in the single modality models, so they can only handle a specific task and make a prediction out of them. But we didn't work on interactivity, language, which are the core of the medicine, because we want to develop methods that can basically express the compassion that we need in medicine. But we never had like any fundamental work in the language section over that 20K paper that we had like in 2022 alone. So, but luckily we had the emergence of the foundation models. So that was a very good news, I think, for the community. What we've seen is that we have an emergence of the foundation model, and I'm just like gonna give you a quick summary of what we are saying a foundational model is. So foundational models are large scale model, usually trained on large scale data set and corpora. And the characteristic of this model is that we are using usually self-supervised learning to train this model. And then we can adapt this model to handle different tasks with minimal data modification and through the process of basically few-shot learning. So foundation models are very good few-shot learners. It means that you can have few examples to adapt this model to a new task that you have at hand. They have two other properties. One of them is generative. They are very good generative models. Generation means that if we need to generate a report for medical purpose, they are very good at it. So that's a very good news for the medical community. And also the reliability of these models are higher than the conventional model that we are seeing. There are studies such as Plex from Google that's showing that these models, they have better calibration, and if they go to auto distribution setup, they're gonna act better. So all of this is signaling that foundation models is gonna give us basically a new paradigm for medical AI development. So we can develop with less data and in a generative fashion. These are the forefront of the thinking that we need for the next development that we need. So we want to leverage foundation model to create medical AI that is more performant. It can scale, it is safer, and it is accessible and equitable. And I'm so happy that Pranav had the first talk before me, because we want to move to our generalist model. And this is a very good news for us that we can look at the data with more flexibility using these models. And the forefront of developing a generalist model is basically language. And we took our first step toward language in medicine late last December by introducing MedPalm. MedPalm is the Google flagship large language model in medicine to provide answer to medical questions in an authoritative fashion and like more accurate than the other models that is out there. So this is a concrete example of like how MedPalm is working. That's simple. You're gonna present a question. It could be a consumer question, or it could be a like more advanced question like in medicine. And MedPalm can provide you with an answer. If you have a medical concern, you can present it to the model and it can provide the answer. But why this is important for us? This is a timeline of development of LLM for science and biomedicine, and you can see that it was a lot of activity since January 2019. So basically, every 2 months, we have a new medical AI or science language model that's been like introduced, starting with BioBirth after introduction of birth, till Galactica, November 2022. In December 22, we introduced MedPalm. And one of the tasks that it was of interest of the community is the medical license exam style question that like basically doctor taking to pass and go get their certificates. So the passing mark is 60%, and MedPalm was the first large language model that can reach the performance of like pass the crossing mark of 60%. And before that, all of the other models are plateaued at 50%. So this was like a very huge step. So for 30 years, we couldn't provide medical answer to medical questions. So, but also, like amazingly, after 3 months, we introduced MedPalm 2, which is a new generation of MedPalm. And with MedPalm 2 introduction, we can see that like we can reach expert performance at 86% for this type of questions. So how we develop MedPalm? That's a big question, and how we get this like large gap of improvement like over 3 months. So basically the answer is simple, building up on top of foundation models. Previously we were using Palm language model, but we changed MedPalm 2 to Palm 2 and adapt Palm 2 to medical knowledge that we have. So we have a panel of clinicians that they are providing exemplar question for us, and we are adapting this large language model using those examples to provide answers that they are more similar to physicians. And we have like multiple other ways to do the tuning. One of the interesting and new additions that we have in MedPalm 2 is to use the language model itself to improve the language model that we have. So what we are doing is to use MedPalm 2 that has been fine-tuned to generate multiple reasoning paths and use those reasoning paths again against the language model to improve itself. That's a very interesting capability that you can actually get out of the language model and large model here. But we heard that this is a very sensitive area, and we know that we want to go toward the safe development. So what we are doing is that we also review all of the long-form answer that we have. So definitely US medical licensing exam was an interesting benchmark, but we saw that we saturate that benchmark very fast. And at this point of time, I personally believe that we need more benchmark here. So what we need is human evaluation. So we have expert evaluation to measure likelihood of harm, alignment with scientific consensus, precision, lack of bias that we need. And we also introduce adversarial question to identify limitations that this answer can have. And results are interesting and promising. So we can see that in a preference ranking, when experts comparing MedPalm 2 versus physician in a pairwise ranking study, we have like 1,066 consumer question. That question that basically a normal user asking Google or other search tools. And the answer provided by MedPalm 2 were preferred over physician by a panel of physicians that they evaluated this answer across 8 out of 9 axes that we have. So that's a very encouraging result that we are seeing. Also, we do non-expert evaluation. Non-expert lay user consider MedPalm 2 answer more directly helpful and relevant to their question than the answer provided by physician. That's also very encouraging. But I want to say that this these are very good evaluation, and we are proud that we started to look into human evaluation for such models that they are sensitive, and we know that we want to have a safe development of them. But we also know that we need more more study coming after this, and we need more benchmark basically to can probe basically what are the limitations of this model. And to give you a solid example of MedPalm versus MedPalm-2 response, you can see that MedPalm has like a short answer to the question that we were asking that get corrected using MedPalm-2. It's a longer answer, more comprehensive, more targeted, and more accurate, and there is no missing information in the answer provided by MedPalm-2. So these are very good. So we have this interactivity. We show that MedPalm-2 can basically encode medical knowledge. That's a great news for us. Definitely for more application, we need more evaluation and more adaptation on top of MedPalm-2 to get it to work for application that they are relevant for clinical workflow and beyond that. But when we have this interactivity, one of the goals that our team were following, and it was a dream for our team actually, was to basically have a demonstration of a generalist biomedical AI. So, and the reason is that we know that doctors, basically, they won't make any prediction or diagnosis based on a single signal. So what we are seeing is that doctors looking at a diverse range of signals, and they can make basically diagnoses that they are making by looking at medical imaging, text that they are seeing, also genomics, and like multiple type of omics data that they are there. So we need to have multimodality here, and we need to have like generality here. So a month ago, we introduced MedPalm-M, MedPalm Multimodal, which is a single model that is multimodal, multitask, and it can perform multiple tasks using the same model width. So MedPalm-M can perform 14 different tasks, including medical question answering, medical visual question answering, medical image classification, radiology report summarization, radiology report generation, and genomic variant calling using a single model with the same weight. This is a huge deal that we never had such a model in history. So to show that what is under the hood of like MedPalm-M, basically MedPalm is built on top of the Google foundation models. We have pathway language model PALM. We have vision transformer, which they can handle sequence of like images, basically as token. And we have PALM-E as the base model, which is an embodied multimodal model. And interestingly, PALM-E is a foundation model that has been trained to basically direct robots. And we use those capabilities that they use for a steering robot using multi-view to look at multi-view data that is coming from medical domain. That's a huge deal, and that's a huge promise of foundation models and how you can use them to new application. And we use multi-med-bench as the alignment data here. We have like 14 diverse biomedical tasks and over 1 million data samples. And in terms of performance, you can see that shaded blue area is the area of the performance like MedPalm-M, which is competitive or exceeding the prior state of the art that we have for every single task that is marked with the red dot. And we can see that this is like a very promising result that we can have like a single model that can perform all of these tasks and basically reaching the state of the art here. Also, we did some human evaluation here. And our human evaluation for the task of radiology report generation is showing that report that is generated by MedPalm-M has been preferred over human-generated one in 40% of the cases. That's encouraging, that to have a single model that's showing this type of performance. And also, we were observing some zero-shot generalization to novel tasks and concepts using only prompting strategy. So to show you one example, we see emergence of zero-shot multimodal medical reasoning. So if we prompt our model using the chain of thought prompting, as you see on the top left, MedPalm-M can start to work and produce results that they are acceptable. They're encouragingly acceptable. So we see that like MedPalm-M can detect the right lesion that is like in this X-ray, and it can provide some relevant information, but it has like incorrectness as well. So there is a missing information about the left side lesion that is related to TB. But interestingly, the result that I'm showing here is from MedPalm large. We have a smaller model that model, we see that it cannot generate any coherent report. So when we are at a larger scale, we see that the new capabilities emerging, and we can get results that they are almost correct, and they can get tuned using a few examples to produce better results here. So I just want to close this discussion. There is a North Star vision, I think, here. Like Pranav actually pointed out to the capabilities and beauty of these models if we move to our generalist models. And why we need them. So you can think about the AI doctor in your pocket. And we want to have models that they can basically perform like a doctor. They should be capable of flexibly handling multiple types of data. But what's the beauty of this is that if we can have models that they can basically encoding multiple types of data, we can work toward discovery. So we also maybe should be able to produce an AI scientist that can produce new hypotheses here using new signal that we are feeding them. And we're gonna have a loop here that AI scientists that can predict new hypotheses, and you have an AI doctor that you can basically use to validate and generate new application for that. And so for scientific discovery, we can imagine discovery of new biomarker, discovery of new drug, personalized medicine, better personalized medicine, and even for clinical trial protocols. So the opportunity is immense here. Also, before closing this talk, I want to point to some of the broader consideration that is here. We know that this is an exciting time in history. We never seen such improvement in short span of time. Basically the work that I presented to you has been done over the last 11 months. It's not even a year. So this is huge. This is a huge deal. But we have a broader consideration here. We have safety issues. We are basically dealing with increasingly capable AI systems that we need to learn that how to steer them. So that's a very important thing. We need to address trust. How do we build trust among clinician and patient here? If we are having an AI doctor, or if we are thinking about AI residents, as Pranav was mentioning. How to deal with equity here? How do we ensure that we don't amplify existing disparities that we have in healthcare? Also, regulation is another issue that we never address. And one of the main blockers of advancement of medical AI, in my belief, is incentives and product. How does the product and user experience look like? And who pay for it? These are the questions that we need to address if we want to move fast and to deliver something that can impact lives of billions of people. And finally, I want to acknowledge the great team that we have at Google that basically enabling such research. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shek, for this exciting talk. So it's time for questions.
Thank you, very exciting talk. I have a question about kind of leveraging the multimodal data. So I understand that right now we have data coming of different modalities like text and genomics. I actually haven't read the paper, sorry, but you kind of have an initial embedding layer for, let's say, genomics and for, let's say, text. But something that I was wondering about is that, in genomics as well as in text, you have often the same gene mentioned. So if you RNA-seq and the expression, you have the same genes kind of, popping over and over. And my question was that, do you think that, we could get to this stage where, for example, embedding of a gene in a text is linked to, let's say, an embedding of a gene in genomics or different modality, a photo of a lung with a lung word embedding. So how I want to kind of pose the question is, do you think that each modality has to be processed with a separate embedding layer? Or do you think we could combine all of this kind of biomedical data into this one kind of, impressive tokens which are connected across modalities?
So that's a very, very interesting question. When we released this paper a month ago, also it was a Google AI blog that has been released with this paper that is basically analyzing the direction that we can go with multimodality. And I think there is an interplay with the specialist model versus the generalist model. And I believe there are still tasks that maybe we need to have a specialist model sitting there and then integrate it to the generalist model. That could be one of the possible paths to address these issues. Even in terms of medical imaging modality, over the experience that we had, modalities such as pathology or mammogram, they are very high quality, large scale images. And if we want to have good vision encoders there, we need to basically deal with them separately other than the other data that they are coming. That's true also for genomes. So maybe this was just a demonstration of what we could achieve. And maybe the design that we need to look into as the next generation of these models and such design that we want to have a single model for all of the purpose is an interplay of the specialist model, a specialist encoder, or a specialist embedding layers that is getting connected to the language model and interact as one model at the end. So these are all exploration and basically open question that we need to experiment on them.
Well, thank you for your very interesting presentation. I'm a doctor, and as a doctor, also interested in AI. I have some questions about your evaluation of your models. You say that you use the physicians as the gold standard, and sometimes the physicians fail to have the answer, and the AI does better than the physician. So how can you consider still that doctors are a gold standards? And second question, how do you recruit your physician doctors for your evaluation? Are they all coming from US, applying American recommendations, which are not the same as in Europe or in other part of the continent, the globe? This would be very interesting to answer these questions.
Yeah, for sure. That's a very relevant question. So to give you more detail here, we have a panel of physicians that they are coming from the UK, US, and India. So that's a combination that we are looking at. Definitely this is limited. So we are getting 3 separate type of rating for each question that we are looking at. But to answer your first question, I think the gold standard here is a bit like in a shady grayish area, to be honest. So we want to use human as expert, but we are basically looking at a combined error here, because human has error, but also language model has some sort of error. And those, by increasing, for example, number of physicians that they are looking at one answer, we are trying to basically address this to some degree. But at the end of the day, we have like some underlying error that's there. So that's the reason that I was saying that like benchmarking of these models and how we are looking at them is still like very huge and important area of our research. So our paper was, I think, one of the first paper that basically actually suggesting to even go to the direction of like using human evaluator to look at this answer. So you can see that like how much more work that is out there that we need to do to find right metrics that we need to look at it to evaluate these methods in a way that is correct. And like maybe multiple round of evaluation is the way to go. Maybe looking at different tasks, having a separate task sitting somewhere else is the way to go. But at this point, I don't have an answer for it. We did our best to come up with a method that is way beyond accuracy, that we know that is saturated. But we know that we have a very, very long way to go from here.
Maybe you could consider adding some observational information from all over the world, from the whole medical community, because as you might know, the practice, the healthcare is very heterogeneous, and it's not only about cancer, radiology, and dermatology. It's about thousands of different diseases from the ambulatory care sector to hospital sectors, and so it would be, well, I heard yesterday that it would be interesting of adding observational information.
That's correct. So I think here is going to be like 2 discussions. One of them is that like what direction we should go for research and what direction we should go for product. Like for example, in the MedPalm case, through Google Cloud, we have programmed that people using MedPalm, and they are providing feedback to us that, okay, what is failing? So we can improve on that. So that's a product side. But like my discussion here is that even from research side in this section, we don't have a clear, good benchmarking tool here. And every time that we are releasing a paper from like MedPalm to MedPalm 2 to MedPalm M, basically we are introducing a benchmark with it because the things that we are right now touching, there is no benchmark. And there is no gold standard, basically. And we are very, very new in this area, and there is a lot to do.
So maybe two brief.
Thank you. Excellent talk. I have two questions. One is small. So I'm not a medical doctor, but I'm a scientist, and I noticed that when I interact with an LLM, I always tell it I'm a medical doctor because the answer is just so much better. And so I was wondering, right, when in your assessment of these models, which should eventually interact with medical doctors, I mean, is that somehow assessed? I was always curious. Right? That's a small question. The bigger question is, what's your thinking, at Google or generally about public health, right? Everything I've heard in the last 2 days, very fascinating, but always very much sort of disease focused and very little about prevention. What's the thinking there, right? I mean, if this model could, get blood pressure down by 10% globally, or glycemic, index, I mean, it would be massive, the impact already. Is that somehow on the agenda or not at all?
So to address your second question first, so that's a very valid question, I guess, that we need to ask ourselves as a community that, okay, what is the thing that we are looking at here? Definitely we want to have better models that they can make diagnosis to some degree or augment doctor, as we are saying these days, and help basically nurses, help with the workflow, help with triaging patient and so on. But one of the other missing, I think, trends here that it was neglected by community, I guess, is to look at the longitudinal data, that we have a lot of it. And I think it's also an agenda to develop foundation model in that space. But definitely any new development here, I would say that even for generalist model, and also Pranav pointed out very correctly that the data is bottleneck. We have a lot of what I'm saying, old-fashioned data in our pipeline. 10 years ago, we wanted to develop a CXR TB detection, and that was our only goal that we had. So all of us collected a lot of data that they are single label. They had report coming with them, but no one ingested that data somehow. But right now we are in a position that we have tools and we have methods that we can use to develop more models that they are more effective, not only for diagnosis, for prevention, for prediction, for prediction of patient outcome in the system, and many, many more question that is out there that's coming with the sequence data. But we don't have data. That's the issue. Even the data that is inside system, we have a lot of data that we cannot access because of all of the silos that they are there. And I think the winner here is going to be the person, the company, the institute that can unblock those data that they are useful in this space for more development. And that's the first part. Definitely, if the data get unblocked, that's a very, very valid place to start to look at and work. For the first question that you ask, I don't have any study or number or any things on top of my mind that I never see that, but it could be possible. It's some sort of positive reinforcement to the model. You're gonna say that, okay, I'm an expert, please give me an expert answer. So that's possible that it's gonna go to the area of doing a bit of few shot learning of the model to give it like some direction of the providing like answer. Yeah.